All right, well, we're very glad that you could join us tonight. When we spend some time looking at love and logic, how many of you have parents? Okay, we all do. And then how many of you are parents? Okay, so we think about this from both sides. And if you're like me, some of the things that you see yourself doing sometimes are things that you experienced as a child growing up. And then some of the things that you find yourself doing, you're doing in reaction or in response to some of the things that you experienced as a child growing up. So this is in no way a replacement for family counseling or counseling on issues that get to be pretty serious. But what it is it's a chance for us to think about some of the things that we already do as parents. You're already doing a lot of things that are working well, but it's also a chance for us to maybe add another idea or to be reminded about something that's important or to refine some of the things that we can do as our children get older. Jeannie was asking me, do you have anything for teenage kids? So I think as we go along, we'll see that. So our first question here, just to consider a little bit, is what are some of the challenges that our kids face on a day-to-day basis? So maybe just take a moment to think about that. Okay, let's think a little bit about what kind of a parent are you? And as I was talking to Jim the other day as we were thinking about that, we thought, we have been all three of these kinds of parents in different situations. So if you look at the names up there, we have the helicopter parent, the drill sergeant, and the consultant. So Charity's going to fill us in a little bit on her thoughts on the helicopter parent.
So the helicopter parent role tends to be one that I want to really work on. It's the, oh no, you fell down? You're okay? Okay, are you okay? I get a little excited. And what do you mean? What do you mean? You can't tell me what happened in school today? Well, I better contact your teacher and find out what you guys were working on today. Oh, you had your self-manager badge taken away? Well, I'm sure it'll be someone else's fault. So in the helicopter parent mode, I become the owner of the actions and the decisions the kids are making. And it's hard. It's a hard balance, I think, as parents, because we want to support our kids and we want to show our kids we're behind them and we're teaching them how to advocate. But there's a real fine balance between I become the owner and the problem solver for the child, and then the child doesn't have to take responsibility. And like I said, I work on that a lot. So then the drill sergeant parent.
I don't think there's an explanation that's necessary for drill sergeant. My dad was a drill sergeant parent, and it goes beyond just screaming and yelling. Because I came to Love and Logic in 1982 when I had my first child, and I had no parenting skills. And I can tell you stories of being backhanded across the mouth because I said no to my mom instead of no ma'am. I can tell you of being whipped by a belt. And in those days, was it child abuse? I don't know, because you could talk to everybody in the street and their father was doing worse to them than what my father was doing to me. And it was possibly considered okay at that time. So that's kind of drill sergeant. A lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of punishment. It could be emotional punishment as well as physical punishment.
We also gave an example of if a child spills something. Have you guys ever had your children spill something? And just the reaction of, oh, clean that up. And, we just had the carpets cleaned. But drill sergeant parent we fight that one too. And the consultant, and we're going to pass this over.
So the consultant would be a parent that is willing to stop and kind of listen and think about what's the need here of this child. And I think about, I've never really had a consultant that I've invited to come and help me with anything, because when I hear consultant, I think that's a lot of money to pay for a consultant. But so a consultant parent would be somebody, I would think a consultant would be somebody that's listening to what you need, maybe giving some advice, a supportive type of role type of a thing. And so Love and logic, I think, is one that moves more that direction with the consultant parent and encouraging you to listen. You got the empathy piece. You've got, okay, got some ideas here if you're interested in hearing the ideas and giving choices and kind of moving in that direction as a consultant.
So just to think about these, the helicopter parent is the parent who wants to solve the problem for the child whenever the problem comes up. Can think of parents who get upset at universities when their child is not accepted. That's the helicopter parent taken to the extreme. And so the message that we give the child when we take on that role is the message basically that sounds like this: you're fragile. You can't do this without me. You need me to interfere, to step in. My role is to protect you. You can't live life without me. So we never say that directly, but it's inferred when we step in and we actually solve all of a child's problems for them. And we don't let the problem rest on the child and let them work through ways to solve it. The drill sergeant is the one who tells the child how to handle a problem. So the child's being bullied at school, or there's something not working, we tell them exactly what they need to do, exactly what they need to say, and we tell them they want to get it done today. So sometimes we play a drill sergeant, and we need to. A young child with a fork next to an outlet in the house, we're going to be a drill sergeant, right? Stop. So when safety is involved, we're going to step in like that. But what we convey over time from a drill sergeant role is this idea: you can't think for yourself. I need to do the thinking for you. My job is to think about your problem and to give you orders, to tell you what to do to solve your problem. So that's over time what we convey. And then the consultant, as we thought about here, the message basically is this, and this is where we want our kids to live. You need to think for yourself. The quality of your life depends on the decisions that you make. My job is to love you. My job is to support you in thinking through your options when you're faced with a decision. And so, I think all of us would say we've been all three of these different types of parents. But what we would like is we want our kids to be able to think about what the problem is that they're facing and what some of the ways they could go about solving it is. So here's our key question for tonight. How do we best equip children for the challenges of life? And this one is also related. How do we maintain that balance between loving our children while at the same time providing limits? You want to pray that your kids make lots of mistakes when they're small, and the payment for those mistakes or the penalty for those mistakes is not that costly, so that they get the chance to feel that sense of owning a mistake, figuring out how to go about the problem solving that's going to be required in order to work things out. And over time, getting that small voice inside that Charles was talking about there. How is this going to work out if I try this? We're going to go to another short video here, and several of the ones that we're going to look at come from the 5 E's of love and logic. Yeah. Yeah, let's do. So
let's take my daughter, 3 years old. We had a primitive band. And every time we went out of the car, she went out the front seat, over the seat, muddy shoes, dirty shoes, instead of the side door. Why? I have no idea. We ranted, we raved, we rescued, and we tried to remodel. Didn't work. So my wife and I were learning how to do the love and logic thing. And so in listening to what they suggested to do, we gave each of our children an allowance based on their age. So she was 3rd grade. How old is 3rd grade now?
8.
8 years old. $8 a week. So that was money that she could spend any way she wanted, even if it was all on chocolate candy. We didn't care. But when it came to cost for things, she started to learn the value of money at that point. So finally, we just decided, my wife and I talked it over, how we're going to handle this. And we said, well, love and logic teaches us to do this, and this is okay. So I sat her down and I said, honey, gosh, you know I love you so much, don't you? Oh, yeah. And you know, every time you get out of the car, you run across the front seats with muddy shoes and dirty. And even though Mom and Dad have asked you to not do that, is that true? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to do that. Well, we noticed that you haven't stopped. So I guess Mom and I got together and we decided that every time you run across the upholstery in the front of the car, you're putting wear and tear on the upholstery. Do you think that happens when you do that? Maybe, okay, or yeah, or I don't know. And I said, well, I think it does. She said, I don't know. I can't tell you what she said. I said, so we thought it would only be fair that you help us replace the upholstery when we have to do it. Now I know you don't make a lot of money. You have an allowance that's $8, and so Mom and I decided that every time you run across the upholstery and the seats in the front, we'll charge you 10 cents. And then we'll just subtract that from your allowance. Feel free to run across the front of the upholstery all you want. Let me tell you, the first allowance that came, when we subtracted $8 minus $25, 30 cents, 3 times across the upholstery in the car during the week. The first thing she got of that, she never once again went across. They understand finances, but they don't understand that. Right? So it works.
Is this the daughter who's now a manager for Starbucks?
Yeah, this is now a district manager for Starbucks. So, and let me, if I can say one more thing. My wife and I never spanked our kids because of my background growing up as a child. And my dad's not an evil man. I'm not trying to tell you that when I explained that situation. But I couldn't go there with the physical spanking, or I would carry it in directions that I didn't want to carry. And so both of my kids have been raised without being spanked ever. And I'm not saying that a child doesn't deserve a rub on the bottom once in a while. I just wasn't the one to be able to do that because I was afraid that it might take me in places I didn't want to go.
Yeah, thank you. Some really good, thoughtful application. And you notice part of Gary's story is that it was a problem that had come up over time, and that he and his wife actually thought through, okay, what's a good logical consequence here? So sometimes our decisions take a little bit of planning. We don't have to have exactly the right consequence right in the moment that something happens. So how are you thinking about this idea of experience? Yeah, interesting, isn't it? To think, so if we rescue a child from a tough time, rescue them from a tough experience, we might be robbing them of an opportunity to actually do a little bit of learning around that. So part of what we want to have tonight is, as we're working together as a group of 4, to keep it pretty informal. So Gary jumped in last time, and I just want to invite Jim and Charity as we move along to jump in whenever you see that opportunity. Okay? All right, so on your own handout, we included all of the notes on this, so you can take a look at that. But we're going to move on, and we're going to take a look. Well, let's look at this idea. The road to wisdom is paved with mistakes. And so the way we react when a mistake comes up becomes pretty essential, right? Yeah.
He asked me to come here because he knew that I raised my children this way. And they asked me to use the microphone for the recording. So I'll give you another example, because I think I can best help the presentation so that you understand how it was actually used in real life. My daughter was in 4th grade. My daughter was very business oriented. She bought with her allowance some blank white paper and some stamps, and she started stamping the white papers with hearts and stars and My Little Ponies and things like that, and colored them in. And she had envelopes too, and then she would go around to the neighbors and sell them. Well, her girlfriend wanted to help her participate in this. And after a while, that didn't turn out very well. My daughter came to me and said, Dad, try not to use the name. Jay doesn't stay in the lines. Whoa, really? Boy, that's terrible. What do you think you're going to do? Or what might you do about that? And she goes, well, I don't know. Will you tell her mom so-and-so? Well, I don't know. I don't think that would work for me. Well, would you tell her to stop doing this then? I don't want her to do it anymore. Well, I don't think that would work either for me. Would you like to know what some other kids would do? Okay. And so I'd go through this list. Well, some kids would do this, some kids would do that, and I'm gonna shorten it because I know where the lessons are going. And what it actually came, and at the very end, you put the problem, so I'm putting the problem back in her hand, and at the very end, I have to walk away and let her solve the problem. As hard as this might be in my heart of hearts. And I said, well, let me know how it works out for you. And I have to move on, okay? Well, it turns out she fired her girlfriend because her girlfriend wouldn't stay in the lines, all right? Lo and behold, 20 years later, in an interview for Starbucks to be a district manager, they asked her, when did you know when was the first time you knew you could manage people? And she told that story. That was a hard experience for her to learn, but she learned it. And it hurt me inside.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. Sometimes when a child makes a mistake, they collapse. And they might even label themselves, I'm so dumb, I can't believe I made that. So we need to convey to them that mistakes come up. It's just a part of life. I was coaching a group of high school girls, young high school girls in basketball, and one of the girls on my team, I'll call her Peggy, had this habit. When she made a mistake, she would kind of give up on herself. And so I said, you know, Peggy, it's okay. Mistakes come up, and sometimes we just say, oops, that was a mistake. Well, we went to team camp during the summertime, and I was behind her in line to put our dishes back up into the kitchen. And I had my clipboard underneath the tray with all of my breakfast dishes on it. And there she was right in front of me, and somehow I dropped everything. And so whatever was left of breakfast, all of those dishes, the whole thing just went clattering all over the floor. And of course, she turned around and looked at me, and I looked at her and I said, oops, guess I better pick it up. So sometimes as we coach our kids on mistakes, we have to think about who they are so we can help them think about owning a mistake before they can think about the solution for it. So we're going to take a look at the next one. Gary conveyed part of this idea of example is basically in that green sentence down there. If I want my kids to take care of themselves, it means I have to take care of myself. And so when Gary's daughter told him that she was having this trouble with her friend who wasn't coloring inside the lines, and could he please talk to her mother about it, Gary said, I don't think that would work too well for me. Right? He's conveying he's going to take care of himself. So I'm going to hand this to Charity and cue up another video for us here.
So when we talk about neutralizing the argument, there'll be a term that you'll hear going brain dead, and sometimes it does require a little bit of just taking your deep breath when we talk about our self-care, an example that we do for our kids. And when we're neutralizing the argument, you got to really think about that empathetic statement, and one that you can really grab onto, because kids are masters. A 16-year-old who just lost their license because of some consequences is a master at argument. I don't have to join the argument. So one of the things that I say is, I know, but about that anatomy grade, You didn't study, so a C is not acceptable in my house. But, you're going to have to take me to baseball practice. You're going to have to do this. I know, but you'll be doing some studying with anatomy. I know. And just really sticking to that empathetic way, not sarcastic, but empathetic. I know. And there in your handout, I believe we had a list of other options in the back of the packet. Some people might say, I hear what you're saying. I hear you. I know what you're saying. I know. It's hard. But that anatomy grade, it's not what's acceptable in this house. So I'm still giving my limits. There's still a consequence happening. And how many of you guys have teenagers right now in this day and age, right? With the cell phones and the electronics. And just for my reference, so we have a couple teenagers. How about younger kids, 10 and under? Okay, yeah. So I have a 8-year-old, my youngest, and he also has quite a, how many of your youngers still really want to be on those electronics? Yeah, I'll raise my hand really, really high. So they, the arguments there can be tantrums, but you don't have to join the argument. So the line says, if a child can argue with me, that child will never come to respect me. So I saw a quote just the other day that says you don't have to join every argument you're invited to. So just really those calm, empathetic statements. I know. I hear you.
So I was thinking of an example this week just from a teacher perspective. My youngest is 17, my oldest is 26, so the great thing about that is that I'm still alive and they're all alive and we still get together and we enjoy each other and all that kind of stuff. I use a lot of love and logic at home, but I've used a lot in the classroom. But one example this week, I have a student that tends to want to wear some clothing that's not the most appropriate, and I teach 5th and 6th grade. And so she likes to wear some shirts that come up a little bit too high. And so Monday, I noticed that another staff member noticed it, and so she went and got a sweatshirt for her on Monday. Well, then yesterday she came in, similar type of a shirt, and I just kind of mentioned something about it to her. And so she said, well, such and such is wearing. I said, I know. And I started going brain dead. And when I go brain dead, it's just kind of like I got to push the emotion out of it. It's like how many times we've talked about this. So I push that emotion out of the way and kind of go, yeah, I understand that they're wearing that, but what do you need to be wearing? She says, but such and I said, yeah, but what do you need to be wearing? And then she tried another thing, but what do you need to be wearing? With a smile and everything. And then the next day she came in with a similar shirt. So then I decided I'm going to go the sense of humor route. So I was doing things throughout the day. I said, oh, I feel like I need to stretch a little bit. Do you feel like you need to stretch? She wouldn't do it. And then so I went the sense of humor route. And then finally we talked and I said, there's a choice here. You know the school rules. You can wear appropriate clothing, or I can give your mom a call and we can go that route. She says, no, we don't need to go that route. And so today she came to school, nice long shirt, and she was wearing the right outfit and everything, so it worked out great.
Yeah, so that key of giving a child choices, right? We could do this, or we could do this, and letting them make that choice for it. So on page 17, you'll see there's 2 ways there to neutralize childhood arguing. And the first one is that love and logic, empathetic response. So something comes up that's tough, and our first response, and for me, when I use this internally, I actually step back slightly, even if I don't do that physically, because sometimes when a child begins to argue, I have to be aware of my own feeling, so I'm not going to tie in and respond in kind. And so internally, I step back, and I want to convey empathy. So I'll say something like, oh man, that's a bummer. Or, wow, I can tell you're really feeling that. So that's that instant empathetic response. And it can be practiced. It can be as simple as, oh no, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. That's tough to feel like that. Part of what happens in that moment is twofold. One of it is it lets me consider what my next step's going to be. And the other one that we want for the child is we want for them to be in a thinking mode. We don't want them to be in a reactive mode, but a thinking mode. So you can see some examples there on page 17. Oh no, I bet that feels terrible. Wow, what a bummer. I can't imagine how bad that feels. Now we have to be sincere, right? So sarcasm could come in here, but we can't let that crop up. Because if we do that, we're going to put them back into a fight or flight. So it does need to be a genuine expression of empathy. The second one that's on here that Gary was referring to is the one-liners that are used like a broken record. Now, there are a lot of people that don't even know what a broken record used to do, right? I don't think we could use this one with kids. They'd have no idea what it was. But if some of you do ever remember that, it would hit a place on the record where the needle would just skip over and over and over again, and you just hear the same line. So the way Jim was conveying to this girl, as she complained, his response was just a simple, and Gary mentioned going brain dead. And this is counterintuitive. So for ourselves, we have to go completely brain dead because we're not going to engage in an argument. So going brain dead means that I'm just going to go to that one-liner. I know. And what did I say? They come back with something else. I know. And what did I say? So there's that broken record. So you can see the sample dialogue. You never let me do what I want.
I love you too much to argue.
But Sally always gets to do what she wants.
I love you too much to argue.
Yeah, that's because you like her better.
But I love you too much to argue. You want to come talk to me later when you're ready to chat calmly. That's how I speak to my kids.
Yeah, so sometimes, when that tone comes up for a child, I'd be glad to talk to you when your voice sounds as calm as mine. And so sooner or later, a child gets the idea that, okay, I am not going to be able to get this adult to argue with me because they always go to this place. They go to this place where they're brain dead. I just hear this, I know, and what did I say? I love you too much to argue. Nice try. It's another good one that you can use with kids when they're doing that.
So how many of you with the younger kids are wondering, I'm going to be doing this for an hour solid with my child, right? Because it's relentless, and that's why the younger that your child is and that you can start that's that experience and the understanding. But again, when I am working with my blended household, I became a mom to 3 kids that I didn't have them at a very young age. And it does really work. And my 8-year-old has seen how I interact with the younger ones. And so when you're thinking about your multiple children, they do start to watch and pay attention. They love the testing. They do want to try to engage you in the argument. But the first couple of times that you do that and you maintain, it might be a 20 or 30-minute investment of, I know, I love you too much. When you can talk like I'm talking, we can chat. I know. I hear what you're saying. After you do that, it does take a couple of times. They will understand. Oh, it's not going to work. Yes.
So think of arguing as a control issue. If they get you to argue, who's in control? Okay, they are. So you have to disengage. So you can grow in that broken record, and you can say, let me know when your voice is going to be as calm as mine, and I'll be happy to talk to you. And I'm going to turn around. She disengaged, and he kept asking as he went, but she did what she was supposed to do. She really wasn't keeping him in, and he'll eventually give. I didn't have that experience with my children. It's the same thing in a classroom as a teacher. If I walk up to a student and I say, pick that up, and I stand there, what am I telling that person? Let's have an argument. Okay, so if I tell my child the same thing and I stand there, even if I'm going broken record and repeating, I'm still trying to say, you know, hey, you can keep me running and running for a half hour here if you want to. Who's in control then, me or you? Okay, so you do have to disengage. But if I walked up to a student and I said, hey, would you mind picking that up? You know, I know you didn't leave that there. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. I snuffled so many high school kids into picking that paper up before they even knew it. Because I'm making the assumption that they're going to follow what I asked them to do. And I did it in a kind and a loving, you know, caring way.
All right, great questions. Please pop out with questions whenever they come up. But yeah, in answer to your question, Mike, it's definitely fine to disengage with a child. Part of what we want to convey is that we are a loving but a powerful adult. And so when we convey something, you know, we assume compliance, you know, so I'll be glad to talk with you when your voice is as calm as mine.
I hate you.
Well, I'll talk to you later, honey. Right, so if I hear that and I'm walking away, what am I actually feeling here? Right? It's like a knife in my heart. But at the same time, you know, I want to convey something, you know, and I might actually rewind that and try it a little bit differently. So if she says, I hate you, I might say, oh, honey, I'm sorry that you're feeling so sad about things right now. I'm looking forward to talking to you when you feel a little bit calmer. But I'm going to walk away because I'm going to assume compliance. This part of the conversation is done. And I want to convey the empathy. I want to convey my love to the child. But then I'm also going to let him know that we're done with this part of it. And I'm going to be happy to talk to you when we get a chance a little bit later.
The way that we approach, even in a calm state, they've agreed. You've set the limits on, I love you too much to argue with you. So they come back. You have a much calmer state. And we talk, I can just speak personally as mom, we talk about agreements. We stay away from rules. We stay, you know, hey, the agreement we had was sometimes I'm going to tell you no, and you're not going to be able to go because it doesn't work with our schedule. And you agreed. So in those calm states, it's kind of that's where you really massage the relationship and the experiences. Hey, we have agreements. I know you were really upset, and I may be the only person in the room who's had their child tell them they hate them, but he has said it a couple of times. And now one of our agreements is he has to apologize when he has told me he hates me. And he's only done it twice since we made that agreement. But we can only have those conversations in that calm. And if it starts to escalate, and it's happened, and he's gotten hyper, I keep talking about my 8-year-old because he's the next oldest one is 15, so the 8-year-old really gets everybody's eyes on him. Then I love you too much. I can see we're not ready to talk yet.
My daughter was very young, and we used timeout as consequences. And her cousin got away with, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And then the mom would engage, oh, you don't hate me, you know, we don't hate people, and, you know, guess who's in control? So the first time my daughter did that, it was, oh, honey, how sad for you. You know, Mom and I love you very much. Disengage, okay? Still yelling, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, possibly. But do I come back to the conversation of I hate you later? In the way I used it, no, I don't. She quit using it. She never once again, and I'm, in all honesty, never once said I hate you again. She realized it didn't work. And of course, you know, so if you're just bringing back that argument, I think you're just trying to get them to learn the lesson.
So for me, what my disclaimer is, again, we're a blended household, so our children, the 3 that live at home, go to their other households every other weekend. And so for us, the strategies we have to use is we do have to come back to it, because what's acceptable in one home, which is their options, is not acceptable in ours. So we do come back to the agreements, and my son does apologize, and he genuinely, when he's calm and he's thought it through and he's had time, sometimes it's the next day. And it's not that I go searching him out. Hey, Wesley, do you remember when you said you hated me yesterday? Yesterday I ruined his Valentine's. I ruined his Valentine's Day because he had 2 days. It was his choice. Okay, I need 2 days to get those sweatshirts and that lunchbox home. Okay, the Valentine's candy made it home. But what do you need from me, Wesley? I need reminders to get those 2 sweatshirts and that lunchbox home. Okay, I'll give you the reminders. I give you 2 days. What's going to be the consequence if you don't bring them home? He chose the consequence. Okay, well, the consequence day came on Valentine's Day. And so he, went to bed angry. I ruined his Valentine's Day. And last night I got to practice again. I love you. It's Valentine's Day. It's a day about love. I love you too much. And he woke up this morning and he apologized. And I went to bed okay, because we have a lot of work to do in a blended household. And I don't know if that applies to anyone else. But for us, that's how we still use our core values of not engaging.
Yeah, so the point of addressing respect is always a very important issue, to come back to it in that way. We want to move on from dealing with argument onto another way we can take care of ourselves. So another way we can take care of ourselves is what we call delaying the consequences. How many of you have had something come up and you've thought, wow, I don't know what I should do right now, but some kind of a consequence is necessary here? Yeah. I used to think that I needed to know exactly what that consequence should be right in that moment. And my brain does not work that way. I need time to think. And so that's what this is. So it looks like this. Let's go back to the example of maybe a child who wanted to spend the night at a friend's house, and the answer is no, it's not going to work for us tonight. And let's follow up on Gary's question, what if the child actually makes the decision and goes over to the friend's house anyway? That's a pretty big ticket item, right? Because they've directly gone against something that you said was really not going to work. And so this one looks like this. This would be with a really young child. Okay, so with a really young child, that's what we call the uh-oh song. Uh-oh. This is a problem. I'm going to have to do something about this. I don't know what that is yet. But don't worry about it. I'll get back to you. Just know that I'm going to have to do something. Okay, so with a very young child, we might use like the uh-oh song. With maybe a teenager, maybe a middle schooler, where it's something along these lines. Middle schoolers like to push the boundaries, right? So something comes up where they just defy a request, like they go to a friend's house when we've said, no, that's not going to work. It's, oh no. You're probably already feeling bad about this. Inside, we're thinking, if you're not feeling bad about it, you should be. Do you notice the wait time? So I'm conveying some empathy here. Oh no. This is a problem. Now at this point, with this example that we're thinking of a child going over to their friend's house, do we need to lecture them and remind them what the mistake was that they made, or do we think they probably have a pretty good idea? Yeah, they probably have a pretty good idea. So, oh no, this is a problem. I know you're probably already feeling pretty bad about this. I'm going to have to do something. I don't know what that is yet. try not to worry about it. How does that feel? Well, where do we want the weight of responsibility to rest? On the child. And so in the meantime, and I might say, I'll go back to rehearsal here. I'm going to have to do something about this. I don't know what that's going to be yet. Try not to worry about it. In the meantime, while I'm thinking about this, you might do a little thinking too. See if you come up with some ideas. And I'll get back to you. So then, how much time have we bought for ourselves? Really as much time as we want, right? If we wait just an hour, has the child felt things for an hour? Probably not yet, especially if it's a middle school kid. If we wait for a day, are they starting to feel it a little bit more? They might be kind of looking at us when we go by. Have you figured it out yet, Dad? Have you figured it out yet, Mom? And we might look at them and say, you know, this is a pretty big deal. I'm still thinking. Are you still thinking? And so when we buy ourselves that time, sometimes we may be in a position where we are thinking just on our own. I would encourage us not to do that. I would encourage us when we buy time on something like that to talk to some other people. A lot of times there are other people in the equation, and so we can recruit people to help us think what an appropriate consequence would be, depending on whatever the situation was. So this particular technique is another way we take care of ourselves, because we don't have to have exactly the right consequence in that particular moment. And when we delay the consequences, doesn't that kind of feel like a consequence just in itself when you hear that? So this is one I've used with kids at school too, when it was a little bit bigger ticket item, especially if they've done something that they know is definitely something that they shouldn't do. So we've talked about neutralizing arguing. We've talked about delaying the consequences. This next one, what about urgent requests? Do your kids ever make urgent requests of you? So number one, you want to think about if it's a need or a want, right? If it's an urgent request that's a want, it might sound something like this. You know, so let's say Dad's cooking dinner, because I'm not going to play Marissa. So, you know, honey, I know you're really wanting to get all of your homework done, and you're thinking that this is a good way to work on your math, but it's important to me that we get to spend a little time together tonight. So I want to think about this for a little while.
You're wasting my time. I want to do it now.
You know, I'd love to have you just hang out with me in the kitchen here. I've got to do a little bit of work. But I want to think about, and maybe you should think about too, what are some of the things that we want to have happen? Because it's our chance to be together as a family too. But what are some of the things that you'd like to have happen between here and the time that we go to sleep?
I want to play on the iPad, and I want to do my sum dog, but maybe I could help with the cooking.
That sounds great. How about if you cut up the carrots? Okay, I'm going to be washing the potatoes over here. So one of the ways might be just to find a way to put it off so that it's not such an urgent thing for the child, so they have a chance to think about it, and you can think about what would be important for the night. All right.
How many of your kids are know something related to self-manager badge? How many of you are aware of this situation, this thing that we do at our schools, this self-manager badge? Okay. So quick background on it for the younger kids. At the middle school, we call it the gold card. It goes with our school colors. But students that really are role model students that are safe, respectful, responsible, who are the kids that you can really rely on, they get these amazing badges, and it's a great way to really highlight in a school setting the kids that are doing the right thing and are role models. So when kids get them, they feel pretty important. They sometimes get to go to recess 2 minutes earlier or go to the cafeteria a little bit earlier. And my son had a self-manager badge. And a few weeks ago, he came home just upset. So he's 8, he's in 3rd grade. He lost his self-manager badge, and it was all so-and-so's fault at his table. She wouldn't stop talking to me. And my heart was broken. We're so proud. He got a student of the month. He got his badge. We took him out to ice cream. We were so happy for him. My favorite statement is, whose fault is it? It's your fault that you got that badge. So, we like to really celebrate this, and I was heartbroken for him because he was really upset. But he continued, and he kept just, it's her fault. She was talking to me, and the teacher won't listen to me, and it won't do this. And my helicopter mom started to spin. Oh man, this is terrible. I'm gonna have to call this teacher. My brain was spinning. We gotta, make sure my son's being heard. And I stopped myself and went, okay, so Wesley, and she made you talk? Well, it's all her fault. She was talking. I was like, wow, you're really upset about this. I can see that. You really like having your self-manager badge. Yeah, it's all her fault. I know you're really upset. When you have your self-manager badge, you feel really important. These are things he has said to me. Yes, I love having my self-manager badge, and the teacher never listens to me, and it's not my fault. Well, you worked really hard to get it. You made good choices. You'll figure out how to get it back. I'm really sorry. I'm sad. It's hard for me to see you be sad, but I know you'll make a good choice. Well, I know it's really upsetting. And my helicopter mom was still spinning up here, and it was taking everything inside of me to decide not to. And so we were able to talk about it, and he was able to, and I said, well, what do you think you should do? What do you think you should do about it once he got past that peak? Well, what are you going to do when you go back to school tomorrow? Well, I'm not going to play with the things in my desk. Oh, that would be a good idea. You're not going to play with the things in your desk? Okay, I think that's a good choice. Do you think that's a good choice? Why is that a good choice? Because the girl sitting across from me won't tell me what to do, and then I won't have to talk back to her, and that's how I lost my self-manager badge. I know you can do it. You earned it the first time. That was all you. You can do it. And I'm really excited to hear about how tomorrow goes. So I put it back on him. I controlled my helicopter and let him make the choice, and he's got his badge back, and we celebrate that thoroughly. But empathy, it's hard. And remember that, because you can have a snafu, there can be a moment, you've gone into a different role, but you really give yourself a little permission to make some mistakes and know that it's swirling over your head, or whatever. If you're the drill sergeant, you want to give the boss. But ask those questions in an empathetic way to your kids.
So I want to have you go to the back of your packet. I think it should be page 12. It says, guide the child to solve the problem. And I wanted to mention, too, that when Bill and I went through Love and Logic Institute over 10 years ago in Wichita, Kansas. And Love and Logic has been probably the skills I learned through that for teaching and for parenting has been incredibly valuable. But I think empathy was the one piece that really made an impact on me, because it forced me to kind of step out of looking at myself so much as a parent and thinking, okay, I've got to solve this problem. I've got to make sure everything looks good. I've got to make this a reflection off of me, how my kids are doing and all this kind of stuff. And I had to just kind of stop and go, okay, this is about them. I need to extend some empathy. I need to think about, okay, what is it they're going through? You know, obviously they're upset about something, so I need to stop thinking so much about myself and how it's impacting me, and think about, okay, what are they going through? And really step into their shoes a little bit. And that was really powerful for me, because we can get pretty self-centered as parents when it comes to our kids, because we think this is a reflection off of us, and we got to make sure that they're doing well, because people are looking at them and thinking, and looking at me too. So I can think of an example with my own parents. At one point in my life, I was going through kind of a difficult thing, and my brothers called me one night and said, do you know how hard this is on your mom and dad, and how you're dealing with this? And I was like, I'm the one that's going through this painful thing. I'm the one that's experiencing the pain. And then he said, well, do you know how hard it is for your mom and dad? And I thought, I need a little empathy right now, please. So I think sometimes as parents, we think it's all about us when we really need to focus in on the kids. So empathy was really valuable for me as a parent, and then also as a teacher in the classroom. So guiding the child to solve the problem. So empathy sounds like, how sad. I bet that hurts. Just really focusing on what it is they're going through. And then step 2 is, so what do you think you're going to do? And give them time to think through that. How are you feeling? What happened? Talk to me. And then it comes to the choice part. And then I always like this part too, because do you want to hear what, I might have some ideas, or do you want to hear what, other people have done in this kind of a situation? Do you want some choices? And just, because it's easy to kind of go, well, I think you should do this, I think you should do this. Always giving them the opportunity to feel like they have some control, that they have some power here. It's not just somebody telling them what to be doing. So at this point, would you like to hear what other kids have? I use this in my classroom all the time. And at this point, offer a variety of choices that range from good to bad. Usually when you're offering choices with your kids, you want to give them choices that are ones that you would want them to choose. And I think that says here too that the one that you would really like them to choose is the first one they offer. And then try not to give them any choices that you really don't want them to choose. So make sure. So each time a choice is offered, go to step 4, forcing the youngster to state the consequence in his or her own words. It usually is best to start out with a poor. Oh, okay. I always like to start with a good one first, but maybe I was. But making sure you've got choices that are ones that you want them to choose. Yeah. Okay. And then step 4, have the child state the consequences. So how do you think that's going to work? So when they choose one of them, so how do you think that's going to work? What is that going to look like in the long run, and kind of walk them through with that. And like I said, I learned that's like you want to make sure that the choices you give are ones that are definitely ones you would say would be good options for them. And then give permission for the child to either solve the problem or not solve the problem. And that's kind of good luck. I hope it works out. Hey, let me know how it works out. We're going to check in with you and see how it's working. So those are the steps to helping them solve the problems.
So it's as a teacher dealing with a lot of kids, those steps we deal with all the time. The empathy, oh man, this is tough. What do you think you're going to do about it? They might say, I don't know. Say, well, would you like a little time to think about it? I'd be glad to meet with you later in the day, maybe afternoon recess. I could share with you some things other kids have tried. Or if they're ready to rehearse through them, that idea of starting with a poor option might be, let's say they got in a big argument with a close friend, or somebody who they usually get along with. It fell apart, they're really angry about it. So starting with a poor choice might be, well, some kids probably or might just go out and say, hey, I'm not going to be your friend anymore, and then they just wouldn't be their friend anymore. How would that work out for you? Well, I kind of like her. I don't want to give up on my friendship. Okay, would you like to hear some other ideas? Some kids might try. But the idea is basically to rehearse through the choices that could be made in a situation, and then have them think through what would be the consequence if they went that direction, if they tried that choice out. So it's an idea, a way for them to rehearse the different ways they could approach a decision. Remember, our key question again is, how do we, actually I don't have it right in front of me here, but the key question is, how do we help our children deal with the challenges of life? And so we look at that idea, they need to experience mistakes, they need to be able to think through options, rehearse how those would work out, and then they need for us to trust them. Hey, let me know how that works out. So, this is really just an introduction to some of the ideas in Love and Logic. When I used to do this with parents from Jefferson Elementary, we did this in about a 6-week format where parents sat around a table and had a chance to discuss with each other some of the issues they were dealing with their own kids. And so we're just overviewing some of the tools that come from Love and Logic. If you go online to loveandlogic.com, you'll see that they have a tremendous amount of resources. You can go to a section there, resources for parents, and there are a number of readings that you can just pull off as they're placed as well.